everyone. This is Bob Sorrentino from Italian Roots and Genealogy. Be sure to check out our Facebook group and our blog and our YouTube channel and our great sponsors, Abiti Ricassa, Italy Rooting, and Phil Italy. And my guest today is Nick Cimino, and he's out on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. So welcome, Nick. Thanks for being here.
Well, I'm actually on the third coast right at the moment. We moved to Texas in 2010. I'm from California originally, but granddaughters and retirement drew us to the third coast.
So where in Texas are you?
We are in Galveston County. It's called League City, and we're the northernmost city next to Houston. Space Center, Houston, Johnson Space Center.
Oh, okay. Well, my daughter lives in Dallas, and she keeps wanting us to move there. So we may be neighbors one day.
Yeah.
So my first question really is, where's the family from in Italy?
Well, my grandfather was born in Lentini in the Syracuse province, and his father was born in Carlentini, their neighboring towns. Lentini is the older of the two. It's actually got a Greek history. It's one of the most inland Greek settlements of Sicily. But, of course, it's in the southeast corner there.
Oh, wow. And when did they come?
Well, my great-grandfather came to Omaha, Nebraska in 1907. And he and his brother Alfio and his sister Lucia were all together in the 1910 census there in Omaha. And then my grandfather and his older sister and his younger brother and their mother came in 1911.
Oh, wow. So the obvious question is, how'd they wind up in Omaha?
Well, there's a chain migration story for Omaha. There were two brothers, the Salerno brothers, who established businesses, clothing, shoes, there in Omaha. And then the great demand for labor associated with the Union Pacific Railroad. They became labor contractors, steamship agents, and bankers, and started this whole chain migration process for Omaha. So in the 1930s, they did a book called The Italians of Omaha, and they said like 70% of the people of Little Italy were from Carlentini and Lentini.
Wow, that's something. Us Italians, especially New York Italian Americans, we don't think anybody migrated from Italy past like New Jersey,
Yeah. Well, I like visiting the various Italian enclaves in the West. We were just in Denver and explored that little enclave there, which is mostly from Potenza, a chain migration story as well. We have a connection on my wife's side with family history in Oklahoma, and there's a place called Krebs, Oklahoma, which is a little Italian town.
Really? Oklahoma? Wow, that's something. Yeah, and I guess with the railroads and mining and things like that, I've learned so much about where they went. Colorado and Omaha, and they've really hit just almost every single state at some point in time, and earlier than people I think would realize.
Yeah. Well, of course, growing up in California, I was always interested in the Italian history of California, and everybody knows about the Bank of America and Mr. Giannini. But our story with Sacramento was that we came after World War II. Shortly after arriving at Omaha, our family moved up to Sioux City, Iowa. And there was a little Italian enclave there, but it was diversified. There were some Calabrians and Sicilians and various others. But my grandfather saw the weather in Sacramento compared to Omaha, and he said, this is where I want to be.
That's funny. So did he set up a business there, or what did he do?
He worked for a variety of different companies, Railway Express. Finally, he got on with the state of California in the highway department as a warehouseman and stockkeeper, and he retired from the state of California.
So I'm interested because most other states, almost every state, people have a tough time finding Italian products. Did you find it tough growing up, or even now in Texas, trying to find the right Italian products to make a good Italian meal with?
It's a challenge. There aren't a lot of delis or specialty stores here. But growing up in Sacramento, it was kind of interesting because my grandfather always just wanted to be an American, and he married an American woman, and my dad married an American woman. So culturally, I didn't really experience a lot of Italian culture. So I always tell people that they can invite me over to dinner anytime.
I know it's when we were in Florida for many years, it was so hard to get stuff. There was one store in St. Pete, and it was like 40 minutes away or something like that. I mean, here in New Jersey, it's easy, and there's one place that's opening up. They've opened up a few delis now, and they have everything from bread to pastries to sausages and everything. It's a blessing. And I have an Italian bakery like 4 blocks away. So you eat your heart out if you're in different states and you can't get that stuff. So what got you started with doing the ancestry research?
Well, it was 1989, and my daughter brought home a third grade family tree project. I heard various stories about mostly my maternal side that I wanted to try to delve into, and they were basically going back to colonial America. But at the same time, I was working on the Italian lines as well, and getting the microfilms from the Family History Center. We were living in Reno, Nevada at the time in '89, and so that was my first entree, early '90s into Italian records. And when the opportunity to retire in 2010 came along, I decided to really delve into this full time. And I got to the point where we were ready to go to Sicily. We'd never been before, and we planned a trip in 2020. And of course, we all know what happened then. And we finally made it in 2022, and we've been back now in 2025. But during the pandemic, we organized these Zoom meetings where I started reaching out because I knew I had a cultural connection with Omaha, and there is an Italian enclave there, and you can find Italian products there. So I reached out and I created this Zoom meeting. There was a Facebook page called Memories of Little Italy, Omaha, and that was my initial entry into the Italians of Omaha.
Yeah, I know that group, as a matter of fact. I think I'm pretty sure I'm a member of it too. So because we had the same experience, we were supposed to go in April of 2020, and we had to cancel and wait like a year and a half before we finally got there. So when did you get there finally?
We got there in April, May 2022, and we started off with an organized tour starting in Palermo, ending in Catania, and saw the major sites, Trapani, Agrigento, the Valley of the Temples, Piazza Armerina, then over to Syracuse, Termina, then ending in Catania. We rented a little place on the beach, not too far from Carlentini Lentini, and rented a car, and got to meet a lot of my relatives, and we did something similar just this last May.
Oh, great! Yeah. Did you know the relatives were there? You found them before you made the trip?
Oh yeah, I'd done all the research, and back in the '90s, I wrote a letter to the Stato Civile office in Carlentini and got a really nice letter back telling me about all of the children of my great-grandfather and connecting me with some living relatives. And so I, kind of loosely corresponded with them over the years, but then I found they were on Facebook, and then it just sort of blossomed from there because I could reach out and start building the descendant trees. And so I have dozens of cousins over there.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I found some of and I never knew they existed. My father's family predominantly, and my grandmother had kept in touch with them for years and years and years, and my aunt had kept in touch with them, and nobody ever said anything. I was shocked when I found out that my father's first cousins were still alive. They're still alive now. They're in their 90s. And I had no idea, so it's really cool when you find them. So what it was like when you got to the hometown? How did you feel when you got there?
For me, it was kind of like coming home. I mean, when I was in California, I had this experience of taking a bicycle trip up towards Oregon, and I had a stop off at Mount Shasta, which is a volcanic mountain. And there was just something spiritual about that place for me. And when I got back to Sicily and I saw Mount Etna, I knew where that came from. It was like, but then on the other hand, it's so foreign in a way because, you know, it's so old and the streets are so narrow and you're experiencing something that you've never really experienced before. It's I mean, to me, it was just a real eye opener.
Yeah, that's the way I felt too. There's something about it, and I think it is ingrained in some of us that do this kind of research that we feel this need not only just to find the families, but to go back and experience where they lived and everything like that. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, for me, one of the really fun parts is I help other people now. And when I'm finding like a birth record for their grandparent who was born in Sicily, it says the name of the street and sometimes the house number where they were born. And so I'm collaborating with a tour guide over there. And so when they go, they meet with her and she takes them to these addresses and they'll knock on doors and try to get stories about the neighborhood and so forth. So it makes it so much more relevant when you can actually walk on the same streets that your ancestors.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good segue into your website, Ancestor Puzzles. So how does that work, and what do you do there? Is that where you ask, you get people come and ask for help, or?
Well, it's kind of a way of documenting some of the stories that I've been able to uncover, and it's an entry point for people to contact me, ancestorpuzzles.com, and there's a little contact box on the right-hand side. What I've been doing since the pandemic is these weekly Zoom meetings, and so I don't charge anybody to attend these meetings. They're free, and I've gotten some people that connected through my friend, the tour guide. So I have people from Messina province and different places, and then of course a focus is the Italians of Omaha. So that's somewhat diversified as well. There's Calabrians and all the way up, pretty much all of southern Italy. So there's towns that also have those connections, like a place called Vinchiaturo and various other small enclaves that went to Omaha. So I document the stories there, but the main activity is the weekly Zoom meetings, and they're free to attend. So just drop me a note on Ancestor Puzzles and say, I want the link, and I'll hook you up. I've networked with a lot of people around the world, throughout the United States. We have a connection with the Italian Genealogical Group. Their people come. I have speakers on occasion. Right now, there's this sister city relationship between Lentini and Omaha. And so that's being formalized practically as we speak. At the end of the month, the 20th through the 24th or something like that, is the Santa Lucia Festival in Lentini. And they just had the Santa Lucia Festival in Omaha. So one of the things that they're doing is they're naming a new amphitheater in Lentini after the former mayor of Omaha. His name was Subby Anzaldo. And so I'm working with his family. They're planning a big concert to follow the dedication, and there's going to be all these activities, and there's going to be an official signing ceremony with the two mayors from Omaha and Lentini. So I'm very interested in sister city relationships and culture, history. It's just kind of a free-form discussion, but we also have speakers. So I invite everyone to attend.
Yeah, that's neat. Do you have like pre-planned topics? I guess when you have a speaker, obviously, I guess you have a
Yeah, I try to send out a notification when we have a speaker. For example, when the son of the former mayor was with us last week, he came, and he was very interesting because he has a long-standing connection with Carlentini, and there were visits going back and forth, because of the prominence of his father, and he could hand out the key to the city to the Carlentini folks. He also had an interesting career in the music industry, and he still does that. His brother is a Sinatra impersonator, and he's going to do a performance at the community theater in Carlentini after the dedication.
Oh, wow. That sounds like fun. Well, if you ever want me to come on, I'm happy to come on. So I can
Well, I love it, Bob. Yeah.
talk a little bit about my research. My research is a little bit different because of what I found with my paternal grandmother, her noble roots. So I could talk about how I found that and some of that kind of stuff if you want. But that will be fun. So now so your other half of your family, they're not Italian. So
Right.
you mentioned that you've done research on them. How far back did you get with the American roots?
We'll be right back.
Experience Italy like never before, traveling with a scheduled group or create your own bespoke tour with friends with philitaly.co. Pack your bags and follow Phil. That's www.philitaly.co.
Well, one of the families that was of interest to me originally was the Fairbanks family. And there's a house in Dedham, Massachusetts, which is outside of Boston, which has been in the family since the 16s. And it's run by the Fairbanks Family Association as a house museum. And so that was one of the first places that I went to when I started getting interested in heritage travel. And of course, they wanted to know how I was related, and this was before I had started genealogy. So that was one of the first mysteries I had to figure out is, what's my connection to the Fairbanks family? My grandmother and her sister had told me about their visits there and about our connection, but they really had no idea how we were connected. And then sometimes you get these old wives' tales, like my mom was telling me that we were related to this guy named John Hanson, who was president of the Second Continental Congress. And turns out I couldn't find any connection.
Yeah, well, my kids are adopted, and my daughter's birth family goes back in America, like like 1600 or something like that. But her interesting things about her, she's a direct descendant of Daniel Boone. And I didn't know that, but Daniel Boone's, his grandfather, either grandfather or great-great-grandfather, was Captain Morgan the pirate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was crazy when I found that. It was like, oh my goodness, this is nuts. But she's got a mix up. I found out that she's got Italian roots going back to this 2 or 3 brothers, the Bassano brothers. They were from, I don't know if it was Milan or someplace in northern Italy. And they went to England, and they were musicians to the court of Henry VIII.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they were in England. They married English, women, and that's where the connection comes in. Through her English side of the family, she's related to these Bassano brothers. So it's really fascinating when you start digging into some of that kind of stuff, So the Fairbanks, are they Douglas Fairbanks family or a different family? Or you don't know?
I don't know about Douglas Fairbanks, whether he's connected, but there was a vice president that Fairbanks, Alaska was named after, and he's part of it. And then there's the Fairbanks scale. They're part of it. And I actually found that there was a Fairbanks family that settled in Petaluma, California, and they had a very grand mansion there in Petaluma, north of San Francisco. And, they were fairly closely related to us. My great-great-grandmother lived in Oakland, California, and I know she socialized with that family. So it's kind of interesting to trace all of the descendants on our branch. It's a very extensive family. Most of the families named Fairbanks are related to that family.
Yeah, I would imagine. Now, how about your wife? She's not Italian, right?
No, her father was actually born in West Virginia, but he's got more of an Oklahoma story. And he has a grandmother who was Native American, Choctaw, and he has a grandfather who was a lawman there in Oklahoma, and some very interesting stories during the Prohibition era that he was involved with. And then on my wife's maternal line, it's the Fitzpatrick family. Well, her maiden name is Harrington, but her mother's maiden name is Fitzpatrick. And the Fitzpatricks were originally Mohawk Valley, New York, but they were loyalists, so they got kicked out and sent to Canada. And then snuck back in and got the homestead in Colorado near Grand Junction, a place called Colburn. And so that's where her mom was born, was Colburn, Colorado.
Well, that's interesting that they got kicked out and, and came back. And then were homesteaders, right? That's really, really neat. Yeah, again, you don't realize. In fact, I never even thought about it. I didn't realize that they sent loyalists to Canada. That's an interesting story. So her family, that part of the family's been around a long time.
Yeah, they divested them of their property in New York, so they were rewarded for their service with land grants on the St. Lawrence River in Ontario.
Wow, that's so interesting. Well, I'm gonna have to look into that because I think that's why I do this. I like history, so finding out your own family history makes it even more exciting. Regardless of what they did or where they came from, at least for me. But well, let me ask it this way: is there anybody else in your family that's really been interested in it, or it's just you?
They're all interested, but I'm so deep into it, as far as research and compilation of data, that they depend on me to be the keeper of the information. But I try to visit various cousins and collect what they have in terms of photographs and stories. I have a cousin that lives in Bend, Oregon. We were just at her house, and she actually had my grandfather's certificate of naturalization that was in a file cabinet that belonged to her parents. And her parents have both passed now, so she's going through all these papers, and she found that. And so she had it out for me, and plus a bunch of other pictures, and snap, copying everything. And I did actually a blog post on that naturalization certificate.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's I didn't even like my sister, for example. My sister had my mother's original birth certificate, which I didn't know until I was trying to, gather everything for the Italian citizenship. I don't know if you ever heard of Kate Kelly. She goes by the photo angel, but she goes to all of these, flea markets and antique places, and she, purchases photos, and then she tries to find the descendants of them. It's like a passion of. I mean, she's a teacher, but when she's not teaching, that's what she does. It's really fascinating, connecting families, 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 generations, distant.
Yeah, I've dabbled in that a bit myself. We were going to estate sales, and I'd come across family Bibles and photographs and various things, and antique stores, what have you, and trying to foster what I call heirloom reunions. Sometimes it's difficult. What I found is the best thing to do is reunite them with a historical society or an archive where they will be kept and be accessible for researchers. But I have had some people that have wanted these Bibles and for their home collection, and I've been able to reunite them.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, she's got a Facebook group called the Photo Angel, and if you do it, if you've done that, she's fascinating. And if you ever want her as a guest on the show, I'm sure she would love to do it. She did my show, and it was a lot of fun doing it because she goes through the process. But it's like I said, it's really quite a dedication. So before we go, how do people reach you if they want to get in touch with you or find the website again?
Ancestry.com. puzzles.com.
Is there a YouTube channel associated with that also?
We're not as organized as you. We do post YouTubes, but one of our members, Mary Kay Lynch, has been posting most of the YouTube videos. So I can't really. We have a Facebook group for Lentini, Omaha, where a lot of those links are posted for the YouTubes.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good too. I'll put that out there on the blog too. Well, thanks again, Nick. I really appreciate you taking the time, and good luck with everything. And we'll get all your information out there too.
Well, thank you, Bob. I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's been good talking to you and getting acquainted.